The galaxy had known peace for almost a century under the rule of the Velar Dominion, a powerful alien empire whose fleet stretched across hundreds of stars. The Velar were tall, graceful beings with shining skin and sharp eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. Among them was Princess Alira, daughter of the High Empress, born into beauty, power, and pride. She was raised to believe that her people were the highest form of life, perfect in body and mind, unmatched in blood and heritage. Humans, on the other hand, were new to the stars. Their ships were small, their technology clumsy, and their colonies fragile. To most alien empires, humans were seen as ambitious but inferior, bold, yet primitive. To Alira, they were little more than wild animals who had accidentally reached the stars. She laughed whenever she saw footage of human soldiers fighting. "They have no pedigree," she said once to her council. "No true lineage. Just chaos and luck." But luck has a strange way of rewriting history. The first contact between humans and the Velar had been peaceful. Trade agreements were signed, ambassadors exchanged gifts, and words of friendship filled the air. Yet beneath the smiles, both sides watched each other carefully. The Velar saw potential threats, and humans saw opportunities. Then one day, deep in the frontier system of Kareth Prime, everything changed. A human mining colony reported strange lights in orbit. Ships, bearing the insignia of the Velar. The miners tried to make contact, but the alien ships opened fire without warning. Within minutes, the colony was reduced to burning dust. Only a handful escaped in a single shuttle, carrying footage of the attack. The human alliance was furious. News spread fast across their networks. Images of destroyed homes and burning families filled the screens. Politicians demanded answers, soldiers volunteered for war, and the once united galaxy began to tremble. The Velar Empire denied everything. A misunderstanding, they claimed. Rogue captains acting without orders. But in truth, it was no accident. The Velar Council, led by Alira's mother, wanted to test human resolve. They believed humans would be too afraid to fight back. Princess Alira herself watched the reports from her palace balcony, her expression calm and amused. "They bark loudly," she said to her advisor, "but they will kneel soon enough." Days later, the first human fleet entered Velar space. The war began not with a declaration, but with fire. Battles broke out near border systems, ships clashed among asteroid belts, and entire planets were evacuated. The Velar expected a quick victory, elegant and decisive. Instead, they met something far more dangerous: human stubbornness. Humans didn't fight with grace. They fought with rage, desperation, and courage that made even the Velar hesitate. They adapted quickly, learned from every defeat, and returned stronger each time. For every ship the Velar destroyed, two more seemed to appear from nowhere. Human captains used wild tactics, unpredictable and reckless, yet devastatingly effective. In the royal war chamber, Alira watched as reports arrived: lost fleets, burning outposts, failed assaults. Her calm confidence began to crack. "How?" she demanded. "They should not be capable of this." Her generals bowed in silence. Even the Empress frowned, sensing that something ancient and dangerous was stirring inside these humans. Meanwhile, on the front lines, a human commander named Captain Rian Cole led a small fleet deep into Velar territory. He was not noble-born, not a genius or hero, just a man who refused to surrender. His ship, Resolute Dawn, became a symbol of defiance. When others retreated, he pressed forward. When communications failed, he acted on instinct. And somehow, against all odds, he survived. Alira saw his image for the first time through intercepted transmissions, a human with tired eyes and a scar down his cheek, standing tall even as explosions lit the sky behind him. "So this is the human they call the Iron Ghost," she murmured. "How interesting." The war stretched on for months. Entire worlds changed hands, and both sides suffered heavy losses. Yet humans did not break. They did not beg for mercy. Even the Velar soldiers began to whisper that humanity fought like something more than flesh, like spirits who refused to die. For the first time in her life, Princess Alira felt something she had never known before. Not anger, not pride, but curiosity. Who were these fragile beings who would rather burn their worlds than bow? What drove them to fight with such madness? She wanted to understand, and she would get her chance soon, in a way that would change the destiny of both races forever. The war had burned across the stars for more than a year. Both sides had lost too much. Cities floated in ruins, and fleets drifted silent in space. Yet still, neither the Velar nor the humans would surrender. Princess Alira watched from her flagship, Radiant Spear, as another battle unfolded on the screen before her. She had grown colder since the war began. The laughter that once filled her voice was gone, replaced by a quiet, calculating tone. Her empire was strong, but even strength had limits. Then came the report that changed everything. A human fleet had been ambushed near the shadowed moon of Thalos 9. Among the wreckage, her soldiers had found something, or rather, someone. Alira stepped into the holding chamber, her boots echoing softly on the metal floor. Inside, a single man sat restrained, his uniform torn, his face bruised but proud. His eyes lifted as the door opened, and even in chains, he looked unbroken. "Captain Rian Cole," she said slowly, her voice smooth but sharp. "The Iron Ghost, humanity's brave little hero." Rian's eyes didn't flinch. "And you must be the princess who started this war." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Started it? No, human. We simply reminded your kind of their place." He leaned forward slightly. "Funny, from what I've seen, your people bleed just like mine." The guards stiffened, but Alira raised a hand to stop them. She walked closer, studying his face with cool curiosity. Up close, he didn't seem like a monster or a savage. He was just a man, tired, determined, and somehow familiar. "You're bold," she said softly. "Even for a dying species." "We're not dying," he replied. "We're surviving. There's a difference." His words lingered in her mind long after she left the chamber. That night, she sat by the window of her private quarters, staring at the distant stars. She had met many humans during the war, but none had spoken with such quiet strength. It unsettled her. For the first time, she wondered if her people had been wrong, if arrogance had blinded them. The next day, she returned to his cell. This time she dismissed the guards. "Why do you fight?" she asked him. "You know you cannot win. The Velar Empire has ruled for centuries." Rian smiled faintly. "Maybe we can't win by your rules. But we don't need to. We just need to make sure you never forget we fought." She studied him carefully. "You risk everything for pride?" "No," he said. "For freedom." The word struck her like a pulse of light. Freedom. Among the Velar, freedom was an illusion. Loyalty to the crown was absolute. Yet this man spoke of it as if it were more precious than life itself. Over the next days, their conversations continued. Alira questioned him about humanity, their art, their families, their hopes. Rian answered with honesty, sometimes even humor. He told her about Earth's blue oceans, about children playing under open skies, about how humans found beauty even in hardship. "You love your world," she said one evening. He nodded. "It's not perfect, but it's ours." Something inside her softened. She had always believed the Velar were the pinnacle of creation, flawless, eternal. Yet here was a human who found strength in imperfection. When her council learned of her visits, they grew suspicious. "Your Highness," said General Theron, "you cannot show mercy to the enemy. He's dangerous. Let us execute him." Alira's voice was calm, but her eyes were like ice. "You will do no such thing." He stays alive. The general hesitated. Why protect him? Because I command it, she said. But deep inside, she didn't fully understand her own reason. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps something else. Days later, a massive explosion shook the ship. Human commandos had launched a surprise rescue mission. Sirens blared, lights flickered, and smoke filled the halls. Illyra ran to the control deck, shouting orders, shields up. Return fire. But amid the chaos, she realized the prisoners section had been breached. She rushed there herself, and through the smoke, she saw Rian, free of his restraints, fighting beside her soldiers, not against them. Rian! She shouted. He turned, his weapon raised, but his eyes widened when he saw her. You'll die if you stay here. The hull's breaking. Before she could respond, an explosion threw them both to the floor. The force ripped open the corridor, sucking air and debris into space. Rian grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the emergency door. Come on! He yelled. For a moment, she hesitated, a princess being saved by a human. But when the metal walls began to tear, pride didn't matter anymore. They stumbled into an escape pod just as the radiant spear split apart behind them. The pod drifted into the silent void, alarms flashing red. Inside, Illyra looked at the man beside her, a man she had called lesser. A man who had just saved her life, for the first time. The alien princess of the Velar Dominion didn't know whether she was the captor or the captive. The escape pod tumbled through space, spinning slowly toward a burning planet below. Inside, alarms screamed and lights flickered. Princess Illyra gripped the seat, her chest tight with fear. Beside her, Rian Cole worked quickly, pressing buttons, pulling levers, trying to guide the pod through the storm of fire. Strap in! He shouted. We're going down! The pod pierced the planet's atmosphere, shaking violently as flames licked across its hull. The world below was a wasteland, endless deserts, broken mountains, and dark skies filled with ash. With a final crash, the pod slammed into the sand, rolling until it came to rest against a ridge. Silence followed. Only the hiss of smoke broke the still air. Rian unbuckled himself and coughed. Still alive, he muttered. Illyra opened her eyes slowly, her head spinning. Where are we? Rian stepped out of the broken hatch, scanning the horizon. No signal. No cities. No ships. He sighed. We're nowhere. The planet was harsh and empty. Red sand, black rocks, and winds that howled like ghosts. The crash had damaged their supplies, leaving only a few food packs, a broken cum device, and half a canister of water. Illyra looked around in disbelief. We cannot survive here. This world is dead. Then we'll make it live, Rian said simply. She frowned. You speak as if you can command life itself. He smiled faintly. Humans don't give up, princess. It's kind of our thing. They set up a small camp beside the wreckage. As night fell, twin moons rose above the horizon, casting silver light across the desert. Illyra sat quietly, watching Rian build a fire using scraps of metal and a few sparks from his blaster. She had never seen a fire made by hand before. The Velar used machines for everything. Why do you do this yourself? She asked. Because it reminds me I'm still human, he replied. She stared into the flames, lost in thought. For the first time in her life, she felt small beneath the vast sky. No fleets, no throne, no guards, just two people trying to survive. Days passed. They searched the nearby canyons for water, climbed rocky cliffs, and built shelter from parts of the escape pod. The planet was brutal, but somehow they endured. Rian hunted strange insect-like creatures for food, while Illyra used her alien knowledge to purify the air filters and create light from crystal fragments. Each day, they began to understand each other more. One evening, while fixing a solar cell, Rian noticed her struggling to lift a heavy panel. Without thinking, He stepped forward and helped her. Their hands brushed for a second. A brief touch, but it carried warmth neither expected. She looked up at him, surprised. "You help your enemy so easily?" He met her eyes. "You're not my enemy anymore, Alira. You're just someone trying to live." Her chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that, without fear or reverence. That night, as the wind howled outside their shelter, she couldn't sleep. She turned to Rian, who sat awake by the dim light. "Why do you care about me?" she whispered. He looked at her quietly. "Because I've seen what hate does. It destroys everything. Maybe out here, we can be something different." She didn't answer, but his words stayed with her long after. Weeks passed, and their camp slowly turned into something more. They found a small oasis hidden between cliffs, a pool of clean water surrounded by strange glowing plants. It became their home. Rian repaired a broken transmitter using alien and human tech combined. Though the signal was weak. As they worked side by side, their bond deepened. They laughed more often. They shared stories. Alira told him about her childhood in the crystal palaces of Velar Prime, where she was never allowed to make mistakes. Rian told her about his time as a soldier, how he'd lost friends but never his will to fight. "You humans," she said one evening, "you are strange. You find light in every shadow. And you aliens," he said with a grin, "hide light even when you have it." She smiled, a small, real smile. It was the first time he had ever seen her truly at peace. But peace never lasts. One morning, Rian woke to the sound of static. The transmitter had finally caught a signal, not from humans, but from Velar ships. They were searching nearby. Alira froze when she heard it. "If they find us, they'll kill you." He nodded. "Then we'd better hide." She looked at him, torn between loyalty and something deeper. "They're my people, Rian. I should go to them, and leave me?" He asked quietly, her voice faltered. "I don't know." Outside, the sky burned with the light of approaching ships. The wind carried the sound of thunder, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. Alira stood beside him, her heart racing. She had once mocked humans for their weakness. Now she stood beside one, ready to fight for him. The morning sky burned red as the Velar ships entered the planet's atmosphere. Their silver hulls gleamed like blades in the sunlight, their engines shaking the desert below. Rian and Alira stood together near the cliffs, watching them descend. The sound filled the air, deep, thunderous, and final. "They've found us," Rian said quietly. Alira's heart pounded in her chest. For weeks she had imagined rescue, but now that it was here, she felt no joy. "They will see you as an enemy," she whispered. "They will not show mercy." Rian smiled faintly. "Mercy's never been something I expect." She turned to him, her voice trembling. "I can tell them you are my prisoner. Maybe they will spare you." He shook his head. "You know that's a lie. They'll execute me the moment I step onto their ship." The wind swept across the sand, carrying silence between them. For a long moment, neither spoke. "I have to go to them," she said finally. "If I run, they will destroy this planet. They'll think I've betrayed them." Rian nodded slowly. "Then go. You've got a home waiting for you." Something inside her broke at those words. He said them without anger, without begging, just calm acceptance. She had spent her life surrounded by people who obeyed her, feared her, or flattered her. But this man treated her as an equal. When she looked into his eyes, she saw no hatred, only quiet sadness. Alira turned away, walking toward the ridge where the Velar landing craft was descending. The wind tugged at her white cloak and sand whipped around her feet. Yet every step felt heavier than the last dot behind her. Rian stood by the wrecked escape pod, watching as the alien princess returned to her people. He felt something tighten in his chest, a feeling he didn't want to name. As the ship landed, a squad of Velar soldiers poured out, their weapons raised. "Princess Alira." shouted the captain. "We have searched for you across 7 systems. The Empress demands your immediate return." She stood tall, her face calm, though her heart raced. "I am unharmed," she said. "Lower your weapons." The captain hesitated. "Your Highness, we detected another life form nearby, human." "Where is he?" Alira paused. The question hung in the air like a blade. "He was my captive," she said slowly. "He did not survive the crash." It was a lie, and she hated herself for it. "Understood," said the captain. "We'll secure the area." But as the soldiers began scanning the wreckage, Rian appeared at the ridge above them, his weapon in hand. The Veeler shouted and aimed, but he didn't fire. He raised his voice instead. "Don't blame her," he called out. "I'm the one you want." Alira spun around, her heart freezing. "Rian, no!" The captain smirked. "So the human lives, good. The Empress will want him alive for questioning." Rian looked down at Alira, his expression calm. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now." She took a step forward. "Stop, don't take him." The soldiers didn't listen. 2 of them advanced and struck Rian with a stunned pulse. He fell to his knees, the weapon slipping from his hand. Alira's breath caught in her throat. "Enough!" she shouted. "He is under my protection." The captain hesitated, confused. "Your protection, Princess?" "Yes," she said firmly. "He saved my life. Without him, I would be dead." "You will not harm him." The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. None dared to defy royal command, but they were clearly troubled. "Then what are your orders, Your Highness?" the captain asked. Alira looked at Rian, at his bruised face, at his steady eyes, still full of quiet strength even in pain. She felt something powerful rising inside her, something she didn't have a name for. "Take us both to the flagship," she said at last. "The Empress will hear my report personally." As the soldiers led them onto the ship, Rian whispered to her, "You didn't have to do that." She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, I did." The ship lifted off, leaving the desert world behind. From the window, Alira watched the planet shrink into darkness. Her heart felt torn between 2 worlds, her duty as a princess and the bond she had found with a man she was supposed to despise. Hours later, as they entered the Veeler home system, she stared at her reflection in the glass. Her face was the same, but something in her eyes had changed. The pride was still there, but softer, tempered by something deeper. When the Empress finally saw her again, Alira knew she would have to choose loyalty to her empire, or loyalty to the truth she had learned among the stars, and deep inside, she already knew her answer. The royal palace of Veeler Prime floated above the clouds like a shining crown. Towers of crystal reached toward the stars, glowing softly in the violet sky. The beauty of it had always taken Alira's breath away, but not today. The ship landed on the royal platform. Dozens of guards waited, weapons in hand. As Alira stepped out, whispers spread through the crowd. Their lost princess had returned. And beside her walked a chained human. Rian's head was held high despite the restraints. His uniform was torn and burned, but his eyes were calm, unafraid. Alira walked beside him, her steps heavy. She knew what this place meant. Here, even a princess could fall. Inside the great throne hall, the Empress waited. She sat upon a seat of silver and light, her long white hair flowing like mist, her gaze sharp as a blade. Around her, nobles and generals stood in silence. Alira bowed her head. "Mother, I have returned." The Empress's voice was cold. "You vanished for weeks. Half our fleet searched for you. And now you bring this creature to my court?" Rian met her gaze without flinching. "I didn't come here by choice." The Empress's eyes narrowed. "He dares to speak." Alira stepped forward quickly. "He saved my life, Mother." When our ship was destroyed, he protected me. Without him, I would not be here." A murmur ran through the hall. The nobles looked shocked, some even disgusted. The Empress rose slowly from her throne. "My daughter," she said softly, "do you understand what you are saying? You speak in defense of a human, a being beneath us." "Beneath us?" Illyra repeated. "He showed more honor than most of our commanders. He fought to save me when our own soldiers fled." The Empress's voice hardened. "Enough, you have been deceived. Humans are dangerous, reckless, emotional, wild. They are a threat to the order we built. Maybe," Illyra said quietly, "that's what makes them strong." The hall fell silent. Every noble froze in disbelief. The Empress stared at her daughter as if seeing her for the first time. "You have been poisoned by their weakness," she said. "You will be purified. And this human." She turned to the guards. "Take him to the labs. The scientists will learn from him before he is disposed of." Rian tensed as two guards approached. Illyra's heart raced. She stepped in front of him, blocking their path. "No," she said firmly. "You will not touch him." The Empress's voice was quiet, but filled with fury. "You would defy me?" "Yes," Illyra said, "because I have seen the truth. You call them animals, but he showed compassion. You call them violent, but we started this war. You say they are weak, but he survived everything you threw at him. If that is weakness, then perhaps we should be so weak." Gasps filled the chamber. Some nobles whispered. Others looked away, afraid to meet the Empress's gaze. The Empress stepped down from her throne, her presence cold and powerful. "You would risk your bloodline for this human?" Illyra looked at Rian, then back at her mother. Her voice was soft but steady. "He is not just human. He is proof that we are wrong." Rian spoke quietly. "Your Majesty, if you want to kill me, do it. But understand this, no matter what you destroy, more humans will rise. That's what we do. We survive." The Empress stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she turned away. "Enough. Guards, wait." The word came not from the Empress, but from one of the generals, an older Veeler who had fought on the front lines. He stepped forward slowly. "With respect, my Empress, I fought these humans. They are not what we thought. They adapt. They learn. And they fight with a spirit I have never seen. Perhaps. The princess is right." Another general nodded in agreement. Then another. The whispers grew louder. For the first time, the Empress looked uncertain. Her gaze moved from her daughter to the human, then to her people. Illyra took a step forward. "End this war, Mother. Let us stop pretending we are perfect. Let us learn from them." The Empress's jaw tightened. "You would see our empire kneel?" "No," Illyra said. "I would see it evolve." Silence filled the hall once more. Then, slowly, the Empress raised her hand. "Take them both to the inner chambers. I will decide their fate." Privately. As the guards led them away, Rian leaned close to Illyra and whispered, "That could have gone worse." She managed a faint smile. "You've never met my mother when she's angry." But behind her smile was fear and hope. For the first time, cracks had appeared in the walls of the Veeler Empire. Something new was beginning. Something that could change everything. The inner chamber of the palace was silent. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and the air was still and cold. Princess Illyra stood before her mother once more, but this time there were no guards, no audience, no soldiers. Only truth between them. Rian stood beside her, still in chains. His face was tired, but his eyes were steady. The Empress watched them both from her seat, her expression unreadable. "You have shamed our name," she said finally. "You have spoken against the crown, against your own kind. And for what? This human?" Illyra did not lower her head. Not just for him, she said quietly. For what he represents. For what we could be if we stopped living in arrogance. The Empress rose, her long robes whispering across the floor. You sound like one of them. Do you think your feelings will change the stars? Our people are pure. Our blood is perfect. It has been so for thousands of years. Then why do we fear them? Alira asked softly. If we are truly perfect, why are we afraid of what they might become? The question hung in the air. The Empress stared at her daughter, the daughter she had raised to be proud, to be powerful, to never bend. Now that same daughter stood before her, defiant and shining with conviction. Perhaps, the Empress said bitterly, I have raised you too well. Rian stepped forward, his voice quiet but strong. She's not wrong. Maybe your people are stronger, faster, smarter. But that doesn't mean we're enemies. The universe is too big for that. You think purity keeps you safe, but it just keeps you afraid. The Empress turned her gaze toward him. You speak boldly for a prisoner. He smiled faintly. Freedom makes us bold. For a long time, the Empress said nothing. Then she turned her back to them, walking slowly toward the great window overlooking the glowing city. Do you love him? She asked suddenly. Alira froze. Mother, answer me, the Empress said, her voice calm but sharp. Alira looked down, then lifted her chin. Yes, I love him. The words filled the chamber like thunder. For a moment, even the air seemed to stop moving. The Empress closed her eyes. Then your fate is sealed. Rian tensed, ready to fight even in chains. But instead of calling the guards, the Empress turned slowly. There were tears, faint, shimmering, in her ancient eyes. When I was young, she said softly, I loved once too. He was not Velar, I hid it. And lost everything because of it. Perhaps I should have learned then what I refuse to see now. She approached them both, her hands trembling slightly. Maybe purity is not strength. Maybe strength is the courage to change. Alira's eyes widened. Mother. The Empress took a deep breath. The war will end. I will send word to the human alliance. There will be peace. Rian stared at her in disbelief. You would do that? After all this? She gave a small, sad smile. Because my daughter has reminded me that perfection means nothing without compassion. Then she looked at the guards at the door. Release him. The chains fell away. Rian rubbed his wrists, unsure if this was real. Alira reached for him, her eyes filled with relief. There will be those who oppose this peace, the Empress warned. They will call you traitor. They will call him your weakness. But perhaps he is your strength. Months passed. The war ended, slowly but surely. Treaties were signed. Human and Velar ships began to share the same skies. For the first time in history, there was no border, only hope. Alira and Rian lived quietly away from the throne, far from the noise of politics and war. They built a home on a small world of green fields and golden light. Life was peaceful. Years later, Alira stood outside under the twin suns, holding a child in her arms. The baby had eyes like hers, glowing faintly blue, but its skin carried the warmth of humanity. Rian walked beside her, smiling. He's perfect, he whispered. Alira smiled softly. Not perfect, she said, but beautiful. The child laughed, a sound so pure it seemed to fill the air with light. And somewhere far away, across the galaxy, people whispered stories of the child, the firstborn of two worlds. Some feared what he might become. Others called him a miracle. The humans said he would carry the strength of both races. The Velar said he was proof that their blood could evolve. But those who had seen the truth simply said one thing. She mocked the human for having no pedigree until she gave birth to magnificent offspring. And so, under the stars, a new era began, not of humans or Velar, but of unity, courage, and the power to change what was once unchangeable. Because in the end, it was never about who was superior. It was about who had the heart to rise above pride.